third info session of the West Boylston new school information for the feasibility study.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We are going to introduce ourselves in just a second, but we are representatives from the town of West Boylston School Building Committee. We were formed to look at what the feasibility of designing a new school would be for the town of West Boylston. We were also accepted into the MSBA grant program, the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The creation of a school building committee is one of the necessary steps in what is called Module 1 of the MSBA grant process, or the eligibility phase. And so with that, we'll go across and introduce ourselves.
Jim Pedoni, School Committee.
Dan Riley, Superintendent.
Vanessa Kuzmanovsky, Select Board.
Mike Connors, I'm a resident with applicable professional experience.
Thank you, everybody. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through some of the capital improvement needs, specifically of Major Edwards. With this proposed project, that is the school that would essentially be replaced with this project. And we'll talk about the specifics of this project throughout the presentation. In addition to that, we're also going to walk you through exactly what the feasibility study entails and what it provides to our town. And just again, I've said this all three, but as you see some of the beautiful artwork on our presentations, that was by a resident, Ryan Aruda, who specializes in marketing and took some time to help us spruce up our presentations, if you will. Okay, so as we started with the other forums as well, just a quick overview of this of our project. This is to build a new 7 through 12 school building. We were accepted into the eligibility phase, which officially started in June of 2025. That eligibility phase goes through February of 2026. The Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, as you'll hear us call them from time to time, they require us to complete steps throughout Module 1, or the eligibility phase. For example, as I said earlier, creating a local school building committee, or an SBC as we're called. Part of this is also to request approval for funding for a feasibility study. And so our school building committee is asking the town to approve a $2 million feasibility study and schematic design. So the first warrant for this will happen, and make sure I'm using the right town speak with politics. It'll be part of the warrants of the October 20th town meeting. If it is accepted at that time, then it will go on to a ballot in December for the town to vote on the approval of the $2 million for the feasibility study and schematic design. Some of the aspects of that feasibility study, and again, I have another slide that also digs into this a little bit more. We would be hiring an owner's project manager, an OPM, in order to help be our liaison with whatever engineering and architecture firm we would be working with in order to complete the schematic design of the school building and what that theorized school building would look like, where it would be placed, and some of the facilities that would also accompany it. In addition to that, we'd also be looking at things like environmental testing and a 50-year capital improvement projection, which helps us to compare the costs of maintaining a building like Major Edwards compared to building a new school. And the reason why communities like to see that is because the maintenance costs over 50 years for an older building are actually quite high. And so when you think about the cost of building a new school and how high that might be, when you compare the two, they're relatively close, and it's good for communities to see that. One thing I always need to point out is we are accepted into, right now, the eligibility phase. It does not mean that we have been cleared to build a new school building yet. And just to run through some of the forums that we've conducted for the community, and these topics were based on community feedback to our school building committee rather. So on September 30th, we talked about regionalization. We talked about the timeline for regionalization, where the town was at with exploring regionalization. At the October 9th meeting, we talked about capital planning, and we reviewed the capital planning needs of both schools. And tonight, again, we did a walkthrough of Major Edwards, and then we're following up with an overview of both capital improvement needs at Major Edwards and the feasibility study itself. We have a project website, which is listed on this slide. On that website, you can find all of our presentations. You can find a link to the recordings of each of these forums. And so we encourage members of the community that if they're seeking more information on any of these topics, everything is located on our website. You can access it right through the town's website under the School Building Committee. We also have an email that some residents have accessed in order to send us helpful information. Emily sent us one earlier with some great points. So thank you to the members of the community who have used that in order to share information with our school building committee. All right, so our agenda for tonight. We completed the walkthrough of Major Edwards. I want to thank our friends from the local cable access station that recorded that walkthrough. We will edit that and we will put that back out to the community. So if you weren't able to join us for that, you can see some of the areas of the building that we looked at together and discussed. We'll look at the benefits of a new school building project for a community. We're going to talk a little bit about capital improvement planning. We're going to give an overview of Major Edwards School Building. And then we're also going to give an overview of the feasibility vote that's coming up at the October 20th town meeting. And then finally, we will share what our upcoming new school project events are. Okay, so as a school building community, we went out and did a little bit of research trying to sort of gather what types of benefits new school projects have been known to bring to communities. So healthy and safer and healthier learning environment for our kids. We talked a little bit about, for example, the man trap situation at Major Edwards and how that potentially gets rectified with a new school project. Increased energy efficiency. We talked a lot about that during the Major Edwards walkthrough and how much money the town puts into an older building when it comes to heating costs and maintaining that building. So you would get an increased energy efficiency from a new school building project. Enhanced teacher recruitment and retention. When you're hiring staff and they're walking into a building, it has an impact on the overall outcomes of that interview at times. Modernized facilities with better technology integration and more flexible learning spaces. Our man Eric has done a fantastic job outfitting this space with all the technology that students need, but it is a very rough outfit that we need to conduct in order to make it work at times. And Eric works magic with that. But obviously a new school building would bring about those upgraded technology systems as well. An increase in property value for residents, a newer usable space for the community, and then also because this is a 7 through 12 building project, it would include those athletic fields and facilities as well. So just so that we're all on the same terms, let's give a quick overview of what capital improvement planning is, which is a process that our town is entering into for a 5-year projection of capital improvement needs. And with that particular plan, the school district submitted 17 different items across the two buildings. There's actually over 50 different capital improvement projects that exist between the two school buildings, and that's submitted to the town as a part of that process. So our capital improvement plan is essentially a published document that identifies, schedules, and identifies the financing of major infrastructure, facility, and equipment projects to manage the growth, sustain operations, and meet the community's needs. What are the key components of this strategic plan? It prioritizes high-cost projects, it estimates expenses, it outlines funding sources, and it sets timelines to ensure financial responsibility and effective asset management. So as I said before, we're currently in this process as a town of updating our 5-year capital improvement plan. The feasibility study itself will also help us, again, look at some of those areas of capital improvement. We just walked through Major Edwards. Just to recap again, Major Edwards Elementary School, which was the original high school building. Am I right? You're my historian.
I don't know about the high school. There was 5 schools here at one point.
Okay.
Mr. Gustafson might know best.
Well, it was opened in 1937, and it had an addition and a renovation in 1996. And it enrolls 462 students currently across 60,000 square feet of space, which we saw some of earlier. Right now at Edwards, we do have some capacity issues in terms of grades 1, 3, and 4 are averaging anywhere between 26 and 27 students in classrooms on rosters. And these numbers are not inflated. I was asked by a community member if this was sort of the result of, we are a school choice district, and as many of you probably know, students from outside of West Boylston come to West Boylston Public Schools to get that sort of small school district personalized opportunity. These numbers, though, are not a component of school choice, which means that when we have limited spacing availability to sort of shift things around, we run into issues when we have larger class sizes or larger student populations at those particular grade levels, which is what we're experiencing now, and we're trying to make some adjustments in live time to get ahead of that. In 2021, that building, along with the middle high school, was assessed by the Colliers project leaders, and again, they identified more than 50 individual projects due to deferred maintenance and just really neglected repair. It's a strong phrase. From what I've experienced, I think the crew that we've had maintaining these buildings does the absolute best that they can. But as we just reviewed at Edwards, there's only so much that you can do until you start removing walls and things like that because something goes wrong. The Colliers Project Leaders Report identifies millions of dollars in high priority repairs for Edwards. Those would be priority 1 repairs. And then there's also a list of what they call priority 2 and then priority 3 repairs as well. So looking at the scope of the work of Edwards, in 2022, the estimated cost of repairs was $5.2 million, and you can see that broken out into priorities 1, 2, and 3 on that chart. In today's dollars, we inflated by 6% over 3 years, so 6% each year. And today, right now, probably that number is about $6.25 million. And what you can see in this chart is if we can't address things, the problem doesn't necessarily go away, it just becomes more expensive. And then projecting out another 6% over 3 years, beginning in 2026, now you're in the ballpark of like $8.2 million. And again, the issue with the building is it's not addressing, even if we were to make all of those repairs, it doesn't address the spacing issues that the community is facing. And this is probably, I've heard it coined, I think even Jim has said it this way, it's not a bad problem to have that our residents and our kids want to go to school in our schools. Edwards has an exceptional staff. The relationships they share with the students is very special, and parents want their kids to go to school here in West Boylston. But repairing that building does not address the spacing issues when there is more interest in attending our school buildings. So as we looked at some of these, and some of these pictures will look familiar to those in the audience that joined us for the walkthrough. But again, you can see some of those foundation issues with cracks in some of the walls. You can see what's happening around some of the roofing structures with the wood trim. the deteriorated pointing of the masonry wall outside on the exterior of the building, HVAC equipment that's antiquated throughout the entire school building. As we looked at the floors, again, we looked at the floors. One of these slides also shows the roofing area, which we weren't able to really get out on and see. But you can obviously see that water collects in areas of the roof, and that can lead to leaking and damage, so never a good thing when you have water collecting. But over time, all roofs eventually fail. So in this roofing structure at Edwards is at the point where it has seen its time. Windows, we looked at windows on our walkthrough and how those windows are deteriorating and quite frankly just not energy efficient at all. And then also lastly, we looked at the sidewalk conditions outside of the school. Again, over time, you see the sidewalks are kind of getting chewed up, the curbing is falling away. So that's another area of concern for us. In order to help put this in sort of perspective for the town, and this is how MSBA guides communities through their process of looking at what costs you might incur as a town in order to look at a new school building project, or there was a program that they had up until about a year or two ago called an accelerated repair program. They've put that on hold for now, and they're focused on new school projects solely. But you can look at some recent projects that were completed throughout the state when you look at Edwards. And again, 2019 renovation and repair in Foxborough, $35 million for that renovation and repair. Fisher Hill Elementary School in Orange, $45 million. That was a demolition of part of their old school and a renovation and then a new addition. You had an elementary school project in Peabody, and that was about $33 million. Again, a renovation and another addition for that particular school. And then in Lawrence, you had the construction of a brand-new school in 2022, which houses about 1,000 students, which is a little more than twice the number of students that we house at Edwards. And that project was $130 million for that community. Again, keep in mind with these approved MSBA projects, we are in the pipeline for reimbursement. So when you see these actualized costs for communities, like if you were to look at Lawrence, Lawrence's project was $130 million, but Lawrence community also received the reimbursement on that project. So the town, or the city of Lawrence, I should say, did not incur $130 million in debt in order to build that new school. That's the benefit of being in the MSBA grant program. Okay, so moving into the feasibility vote itself, right? So town meeting is on the 20th, on Monday of next week at 6 p.m. Your school building committee is requesting $2 million to study the building of a new 7 through 12 middle high school. That $2 million goes towards a few things, one of them being the feasibility study. A feasibility study is a comprehensive assessment conducted before a project begins. So it's a look at what the project potentially entails. And why that's important is because as a town, we need to be able to look at the practicality of the project, the viability of the project, and the potential for its success. So that's where we start to derive some of the cost figures, is from that actual feasibility study. Without a feasibility study, we are truly just guessing at what a project may or may not cost. Again, we can do our due diligence to pull figures in from other communities that have done similar things if we can find similar projects. But again, it's just an estimation. So I like to just point that out for the community, that without the feasibility study, we just don't know what it will cost. But it provides stakeholders with the information needed to make informed decisions. In addition to that would be the schematic design of that 7 through 12 middle high school, which is essentially the initial phase of the architecture process or for the engineering project itself. It takes ideas and it turns them into physical drawings and models, floor plans, elevations, the layout, the scale, the concept, and systems of the building. It allows for the edits as well, in terms of what we're doing as a town, so you can be more actively involved in the budgetary side of that to an extent, when it comes to getting the overall schematic design of what the proposal is. A personal example I can use is in the community that I was coming from. We had done the schematic design. We had asked the firm to try and keep those costs within a certain range. In this example, they weren't able to do that. Unfortunately, it had exceeded the range that we were looking for, but it helped us as a community make informed decisions about what we were looking for, and then ultimately whether or not we ended up working with that firm on that particular project. So helpful information about the feasibility study itself. Again, we are approved for just over 57% reimbursement as a town. That's our current 2025 reimbursement rate. We were told by MSBA that that will change most likely come 2026, but it will not change by much. They said it would still be in that ballpark of about 57%. But they do set new figures at the turn of each calendar year. We are requesting $2 million, but when you think about the $2 million being for the full scope of feasibility, we also are accepted for that reimbursement rate. So many of the costs that we would incur as a part of this feasibility study would be reimbursable. So the town might not expend the entire $2 million, even though MSBA requires us to request the full amount of what the feasibility study may cost. The scope of it, the monies would be used to examine the feasibility of a new 7 through 12 middle high school. We would also take part of those monies and we would need to look at what a renovation and rehab of this building would cost, because part of this project is to shift the student population from Edwards. Again, as I started, Edwards would be the school that we are ultimately looking to replace, but it would shift the pre-K through 6 grades would be here. 6 grades currently here now. Pre-K through 5 would be coming over to this school building to join the 6th graders, and then you would have a brand new 7 through 12 middle high school. And again, the long-term planning components of a feasibility study, we would include a 50-year capital improvement plan or expenses in order to make some comparisons and inform decisions as a town. If we vote no on the feasibility study, then we would have to reconvene as a school building committee and sort of make some decisions on what comes next. We've looked at other options as opposed to maybe just exiting the MSBA program, because that would be one of the options. We've talked about maybe trying to look at other funding sources through town in order to still bring this to fruition, but that would be something, if there was a no vote, we're meeting on October 27th as a school building committee, and we would just bring that information back to the committee, and then we would talk about next steps. One of those next steps also, which is included on this slide, we could resubmit if there's a request from the town to continue to look at new school building projects. We could always resubmit to MSBA as well. The problem with resubmitting is MSBA really, they make the final decision on whether or not you are accepted into the pipeline. They make the final decision on the priority of need. Now, MSBA has already identified West Boylston as having significant need, which is why we were selected amongst 60 plus applicants for this particular cycle of new school building projects. But MSBA still says we just need the community to know we reserve the right to say there might be a greater need somewhere else if we were to resubmit an application. And then, of course, this doesn't, even if we did move forward with a new school building project, and I think Ray always sort of articulates this well, so I'm going to steal what you were was sharing, Ray, because I think it's well said. 5 to 7 years could be that scope and that range of what we're looking at. You have about a year's time where that feasibility study is being conducted. And then you can look at if it gets approved by the town to go into the new construction project on whatever, let's say, for example, that debt exclusion looks like, then we begin construction. Now, obviously, our recommendation as a school building committee is going to be to build the school as fast as possible, because in construction, one thing always stands true. The longer it takes, the more expensive it is. So we would want to make sure as a school building committee that we're on top of that project as it unfolds to sort of help to keep those costs contained as much as we possibly can with a firm that we would be working with on that. But there will be some capital improvement needs that will still continue to be an issue in that time span of that window. We wouldn't be able to just do nothing over the next 5 to 7 years. We would have to continue to start looking at what priorities need to be addressed between both school buildings. Okay, so upcoming events. Town meeting, October 20th. We've sort of had a marathon of meetings, which we were absolutely honored to be a part of and to be discussing these things on the part of the town. I want to thank all the members of the school building committee. I think you have a fantastic group of stakeholders who are there to represent the town and to look at all of these things in the town's best interest. If you are in the audience or if you're at home, this is a QR code. If you want to scan that, you can give us some feedback on how you think this forum went, how the presentation of information was. And with that, we'll turn it over to some questions. We good? Questions? Yeah. All right.
Great presentation, and again, thanks again for all your hard work. 2 questions, and one pertains to the, I guess, they both pertain to the content of the study. You mentioned that it would be a 50-year, one component of the study would be a 50-year evaluation of capital costs on the existing school property, should we not build a new property. I assume that it would also contain a 50-year forecast of capital costs on a new school building, because that's going to have costs going out 50 years to maintain HVAC, windows, roof, so on and so forth.
I would imagine so.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
just
sure,
wanna make
Chris,
sure, okay.
specifically, but yes. And again, remember that with the feasibility study itself, there are opportunities for us to tailor what we
Okay.
need for information as a town, and I think that's a great point
Okay.
in terms of asking those types of questions, is really forward-thinking.
Good. And along those lines, bringing over the component of the middle high school that will be in that, I'm sorry, the grammar school that will come over here for renovation, and that's going to be in the scope of this study as well. Will that also be reimbursed, that portion of the study, at 57%?
So I've asked this question of MSBA, and their first response was no.
Okay.
There are some differing opinions on whether or not that pertains to this 7 through 12 project.
Okay.
So our intention as a school building committee would be to continue to work with them on that.
Okay.
But their specific feedback from me was the reimbursable portions of this are strictly tied to
7
the
to 12.
7 through 12.
So
Middle high school project.
along those lines, if we did go forward with moving that over here, that, your estimates in here, 35 to $45 million of recent schools of a like size, that would not be reimbursable under the school building.
Yeah, so, and again, while the schematic design or the overall projected plan for this building, let's say, I think that there's still room for discussion with MSBA on that part being reimbursable, because it's a part of the larger plan. Right?
Yeah.
Moving here, building new, that's part of the larger plan. So I think with MSBA, we have full intentions to continue to work with them on the reimbursement for the schematic design
Good.
of the rehab here.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The actual costs for rehabbing this building are not included in what we would be reimbursed on.
Okay. We'll get everybody involved to lobby for it then.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening. David Gustafson, 570 Prospect Street. First, I want to thank all of you for your service to the town, and I want to welcome Dr. Riley
Thank you.
to the
Thank you,
school
David.
system. It's great to have you here. I taught English in this building for 34 years and retired in 2021, so I'm very passionate about our school and keeping it going. And I guess my question is one of unity. And I'd like to know if we have unity among, I would assume, the members of the school committee for this feasibility study and project, but also among the members of the select board, and I think there are 3 of you who are here tonight, not to put you on the spot. And next Monday at town meeting, when the moderator turns to the finance committee for a recommendation, if the finance committee will be able to give a positive recommendation for this project. And I just think that having that kind of unity at town meeting will be crucial for this to go forward. I've been thinking a lot about this. Your regionalization presentation a couple of weeks ago was very persuasive, and I would call that just doing your due diligence. And I know periodically regionalization comes up, going way back to the 1980s. When I first started teaching here, there was a lot of talk about regionalization, and it's never gone anywhere. And I think that's true for several reasons. One is that surrounding towns do not have room for us. And in the past, I believe there were towns that did not want us. And I think that could be true today as well. So if people here who are on the select board or finance committee, school committee, if you could just speak to us about your thoughts about this, I think it would be very persuasive at town meeting next Monday if everybody is unified. But if you're not, we need to get that out in the open. And maybe tonight we can talk about why we might not be unified. Thank you.
I can start. I do believe that when you are an elected official, it is actually a benefit to have differing opinions. You don't want everyone on the same board thinking the same thing. There'll be no progress, no discussion. I really do believe that we all have the best intentions, and I do think we all have differing opinions, and I don't know what the extent is of those opinions, but I don't think you'll ever find complete unity in really any decision, honestly.
If there is unity, I had actually forgotten. Welcome to the superintendent, and I think you've done a great job. If anybody, your speeches have been very inclusive, and you know, I would credit you as a lot of any unity that there is.
Thank you.
First question is about the funding that the formula that they use, I guess, to figure out how much school they'll pay for. Is that based on eligible students in town, or is it on the number of students that go? Because there's been chatter, I believe, about, like, a lot of kids go through Major Edwards and then will go to, you know, St. John's or go out. But I just want to, does that matter? Is the eligible student number the number used for the calculation, not the number of students that go?
Yeah. You want me to answer that first?
Sure.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
It's a mixture of both. So we have to have an enrollment meeting with MSBA towards the end of November. And what we do in that meeting is we look at what current enrollment trends look like. The reason why I said it's a little bit of both, because yes, while they will see that there's a smaller population of students, let's say an average of maybe 60 to 65 students per class, as opposed to maybe 75 students per class in grades 9 through 12.
Right.
Part of that is linked to our CTE programming and the partnership that we have. That's career and technical education, I'm sorry. We have a lot of acronyms in education, and I always have to remind myself not to just throw them out there. But we have a partnership that provides students in West Boylston with career and technical education, if that's the path that they want to take. And so the realization, though, for MSBA as well, though, is when you design and build a new school, there is a natural appeal for students to stay. So they also recognize that part of it. So therefore, they do also look at what could potentially be projected if everyone stays, but then they also look at the reality of what we have for student numbers at this point in time.
So, but you definitely have the numbers of the eligibles, even if they're not coming in. I mean, you have, I guess the town has a census or something, and they know that number.
Oh, absolutely. In terms of MSBA's perspective on our enrollment and the need for this?
Well, more the, like, a lot of, like, there's St. John's kids, there's Worcester Academy kids in town, but you know about them. It's not like you, whatever, assume that they left or moved away and they aren't even
Oh,
in
yeah,
town.
we track that. Yep, we
Yeah.
track where students go to school, especially if they're residents of the community.
Right,
Yep.
okay, and, all right, good. I mean, I'm, that's sort of seeking to sort of dispel, I don't know, any idea that that is a, like, kids aren't using the school, why get one, you know, or something like that.
Oh,
So,
sure, yep.
Let's see, the other one is part of the funding for the new school, the reimbursement amount, does that include raising or taking down the old Major Edwards? I mean, because I mean, like, we've had this problem with schools hanging around for a little too long in town, and used for other things, but if it's got its issues, I mean, is part of the plan to tear it down, and maybe, I don't know, maybe a field goes over there, I don't know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and from my understanding, MSBA has moved away from funding demolition. So
Okay.
that becomes probably part of the town expense. And the reason why I'm kind of using vague language like probably and maybe is because MSBA also goes through its annual changes. And so an example of that is its reimbursement process, right? It's recently modified to become more in real time. So there's changes that come up with MSBA in terms of its policies and practices. But from my understanding right now, they have shifted away from demolition costs
Well,
And-
nuts, okay.
for their reimbursement program.
I would hope, whatever, at some level, it's addressed so that we at least know how much we're facing there.
I would just like to add one thing, and I don't know the specifics, but once it's no longer a school, I don't believe it falls under the jurisdiction of the school committee. So it's a town asset.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we know at this point in time what we would want to do with that building and who even makes those decisions. So I think that's something else to consider as well.
Yeah, and it's not an easy call. I mean, you know, we used the other one for town hall, you know, and then it turned into or was raised and turned into the senior center. I mean, anything could happen, I guess. I'm just wondering if that was part of the planning, but it may not be. It sounds like you said that there would be, in the 50-year plan, an energy use, because we did sort of an energy audit of the schools, I mean, energy use of the new one, and you sort of look, you know, make sure that that makes sense. It's, you're not putting in oil burners or something that is going to get worse or harder or something to keep going. Okay, now back to the 2 million. Is it possible to spend the full 2 million, even considering the reimbursement? So we would get 2 million of state or whatever, and 1 million more that's our money. You'd get, you know, the 1 million of reimbursement, so we'd spend 2 million, but then you'd get whatever they reimburse, but you still end up spending 2 million to get whatever, you know, the study to be as full as you wanted. You know, like for this building, maybe you do more study to make sure that this building comes out okay, and that's not a reimbursable expense, but you still keep doing more studies, and you bump into the 2 million. Is that a possible thing, that we still spend 2 million, but we get 3 million or whatever that works out to be in work? I mean, it wouldn't be wasted, it would just be a lot of engineering, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
You
possible.
want to answer? I kind of.
I guess my perspective of it would be, that wouldn't be what we're telling the people we're using the money for. So,
Oh, well, okay.
I guess I would not be in favor of doing something like that, because we're stating that we're asking for $2 million to do a feasibility study. We're estimating that's the cost of it, and there's reimbursable funds. I think it would be outside of the scope to go beyond that if we're selling it as such.
And I think it's written into the warrant as well, right? That the
I
specific
believe so, yeah.
use of the money, the fund itself is overseen by the school building committee to use for the purposes of studying the feasibility of the 7 through 12 middle high school. So I think, as Jim pointed out, the intention would be to keep it within that scope.
Appropriate.
that's
I'm
what
sure
we-
that's, I'm just standing here learning from, or not trying to learn from what we've done before, which is when we did the senior center and they dug up the, across the softball or soccer field, and we didn't get, we thought that that was part of that plan, and then it fell out of the plan, and it turned into costing us, I mean, it's a beautiful softball field.
Yeah, that's-
But it
yeah.
ended up being outside of the scope, and it turned into a town expense separately.
Oh, gotcha.
So, I mean, like, if we're spending this money, you're not gonna, I would hate to run into an end of the project that isn't the end of the project. You know, like you're here and you're in this building and you're saying, oh, we have to do more work in this building. Well, we have to do an engineering study to figure it out now, you know, because we didn't do it the first time. I just want to avoid sort of slowing things down by,
Yeah, I mean, a point taken, I just think that if we're gonna do anything outside what we tell people we're gonna do, we have to bring it back to them.
do it. I would say do it. Oh, and then, I was just going to welcome, my last line is, thank you to the new superintendent for helping out with this whole thing, and great presentation,
Thank you,
even with the Aruda stuff.
thank you, appreciate it.
Ray Burkalt, Prescott Street. I did want to try to answer from the Finance Committee perspective the question from Mr. Gustafson. I think it's fair to say that the committee as a whole recognizes the need, we need to do something. I cannot say that there's uniformity of opinion as to this being the plan that we would choose to promote. We are actually discussing this tomorrow night for anyone who's interested in joining a very exciting Finance Committee meeting. But of the actions that we're considering, one would be that we take no formal endorsement vote, but potentially provide an opinion on pros and cons. We might choose to endorse or not endorse, but part of the logic in the meetings we've had so far is this is really a town decision on whether or not to create an asset. And that's not just dollars and cents, it's really the value to the community, which isn't something we can really quantify. So we'll be figuring this out tomorrow.
Nice, thank you, Ray.
Maura Johnson, Bunker Hill Parkway. To follow up kind of with what Mark was saying is the taxpayer really wants transparency, so we don't want to commit to a $2 million feasibility study and then turn around and say that did not include renovation, playground, the bus, the parking lot, the curbs, all the other periphery stuff that goes with a school. So it's already been brought up in other meetings of if Major Edwards does not exist there, where is their new playground? So we have to think outside the box to realize that if $2 million feasibility study is only limited to the reimbursement of a new high school, what's going to be asked of us as taxpayers moving forward, either at next town meetings or just if somebody came up on Monday and said, what happens to the playground? And nobody can answer it, it's kind of begging the question of how many times are you going to come back to the table to ask for more? So the other part of that too is the only reason why we are thinking of a new high school is because it's reimbursable. Why don't you just skip that part and rebuild Major Edwards?
I'll take this one. This
Okay.
is a much longer answer. And I'm actually going to tie in an answer to Mr. Gustafson with this as well. This process started many, many years ago, and it started with a study that we got from NESDEC. They came up with a number of options, and the school committee at that time voted unanimously to take the options they gave us, which one of them was a new 6 through 12 building, and modify it slightly to be a 7 through 12 building. A lot of the reasons why is at the time, we felt that this building is, the current middle high, is a very good building structurally and sound, and has a lot of benefits that can be utilized as an elementary school. It does not, however, have a lot of the characteristics of a modern-day high school. So if we're going to build something, we should really try to look at how do we make the school system as whole as possible. And a new high school at that time, a 7 through 12, seemed to be the best answer. I still feel it is the best answer. I can't say that the school committee is still unified, but there were, because of turnover, we currently still have 3 members who voted in this way on the school committee. So we haven't taken a new action to find out if the school committee is still unified in that way, but the 3 of us that did vote for it are still present on the committee. From that report, we moved forward to try to get accepted into the MSBA program to be eligible for a building. It's a lengthy process. We've submitted multiple times and were turned down. We had hired a consultant company to help us with this initially as well, who, really, I guess, is part of their expertise is helping school districts get accepted into the program. The 3 major characteristics, and Dan's gonna have to help me because I always forget one of them, is enrollment, programming, and I think I actually figured it out, and the state of the building. So, based on that, at the time that we first submitted, there were other communities with dire needs than us, if you can believe it, after taking a tour of Major Edwards. So it took a couple times before we even got a meeting, and the first meeting we had was December of '23, where we were a finalist. We were one of 60 schools. We had a meeting here with school committee members, town administrators, the superintendent at the time, and then several MSBA representatives, and we toured the buildings. There was no spot on the form when we applied to explain our entire plan of shifting this to be the elementary school and making a new 7 through 12. After the meeting, they understood what our goals were and going forward, and when we were invited to reapply, we had the opportunity at that point to then present the necessary documentation to explain our entire plan. It was at that point that we were actually accepted into the MSBA program, which was in December of '24.
Yep.
Which leads us to this point now. So the long-winded answer, I wanted to, I guess, define the whole process so people kind of understand how long it takes. It took this long to get where we are. This is something that at the time we went through all this, we felt it's the best result for the community. The MSBA has agreed, otherwise I don't think they would have invited us into the eligibility period. And as we've mentioned in multiple of the presentations, we can't really deviate from the plan without setbacks. And from my point of view, setbacks just mean more money. I can't speak to any definitive plans because there aren't any for here, but hypothetically, if we were able to build the 7 through 12 building with the appropriate athletic fields, there's a possibility we could build a playground on this baseball field here, right? So there's a lot of options. There's a study that was done for sidewalks and improvement in ADA accessibility to this building. Those things should be looked at and be part of another plan going forward. So there is an ask beyond the new school to do renovations to this building, which could be sizable because we want to make sure that we bring it up to ADA compliance and we have things like a playground. We have to retrofit the bathrooms for little people, things like that. So there's a lot that still needs to be done. But I think overall, if you look at the project as a whole, it would still be the best thing for the district and for the community. And only some of this is reimbursable. The larger amount is what would be reimbursable, being a 7 through 12, for 2 reasons. One, you cannot be in more than one MSBA project at a time, so it's either new school building or the accelerated repair. But on the other side is the accelerated repair currently has been suspended, so it's not even an option. So the timing for all of this, at least doing it this way, we would get a reimbursement of a larger project.
Tina Archambault, Goodale Street. Jim, that was really helpful. Can you elaborate a little bit more on modern-day high school and what the benefits would be of building a new 7 through 12?
I'll try to. I'll give a couple of mine, but I would also yield to Dr. Riley from an education's perspective. Two biggest things that stick out to me in this building are the science labs and the gymnasium. They are just not adequate. The gymnasium is not adequate size. Our science labs are, in my opinion, subpar for what we should be offering our students.
Yeah,
You want to
and-
add to that?
Yeah, I'll add two other components. The energy efficiency of the building alone is going to make it a much better, cost-effective measure for the town and the community. And then also in newer education spaces, and this proposal is a traditional space. So we had explored the potential for career and technical education programming, for example. We weren't able to necessarily add that into reimbursable expenses, but it was explored back in the summertime when it got brought up at by a school committee member. So this is a traditional education space which also provides for more of a flexible learning format. So you think about the makeup of the classrooms, and if you were to walk through our classrooms, in many of them, you can kind of see that traditional, like, there's your desks, that's where the teacher's desk is, that's where the instruction happens. In a more flexible learning environment, it would be more fluid. We would look at classroom furniture that lends itself to that sort of flexible learning environment as well. And it promotes different instructional modes. It also promotes better collaboration among students in classroom when it comes to the things that they're learning and how they're learning those things. So I'll add those two elements as well too, which is the overall benefit of learning itself and what that looks like in modern time.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm new to town. I have a daughter in the kindergarten at Major Edward, and I have two little boys at home too, and they're gonna come through the school system. Talking about a modern high school is so exciting because, you know, it was a while I went to high school a long time ago, but the kids that come out of college these days, they come from these high schools that have these incredible science labs. They do robotics clubs. They build robots. They're not just doing like science experiments with static electricity. They're making ethanol in their chemistry class. Like, if you can modernize the high school and get kids excited about these types of things, you're really gonna produce like wonderful, productive individuals in society, and it's gonna make West Boylston like very proud, and you're gonna have some incredible students come out. I watched the school committee meeting this month. I actually was trying to find the building meeting because couldn't quite find it, but did anybody see the students of the month? They were amazing. They were kind, they were insightful, they were thoughtful. Two of the boys wanted to be engineers. I'm an engineer. So it's really cool to watch that, and like, excitement of the youth is incredible, and it's so energizing. And I'm 34, so I feel old, but like, so watching these high school kids, I get excited, and you want to keep that going. You want to like fund them and say yes to their education. So, just wanted to say thank you. I think it's great.
Thank you, Emily.
Hi, my name's Kathy Cabin. I was here last week. I had kids in the high school. They went through, and I have grandkids in the school system now. Couple of things. So at the town meeting, if this feasibility study is that you want to go through, do you have what you're telling the town that they will be paying for the feasibility study? Because town will want to know every penny they have to put out. That's just how they are. I've come to learn that. So whatever the cost is going to be to them for how many years that they're going to have to pay for this feasibility study, I'm hoping that you're letting the town know, because really, depending upon the price, may decide whether you get a yes or a no with that, okay? And one of the things I thought, how often does the school ask the town for money? Is that every year? Is that every other year? Is that every 5 years? I know renovations, I know whatever. But if we're not asking the town to fund something in the school system every year, then the town has to think about that, well, if they're asking you now, it's obviously for something important. So that's just one of the questions that came to mind. And as far as I'm concerned, on my own opinion, this feasibility study has to be done, because after touring that elementary school, if that's going to try to get us a new high school, to get those kids out of that school and into this school for a safer and healthier environment, as you have written down here, then that's what has to go through in this town, because you can't keep them in that school down there when every day they're in the school, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. You can only renovate so much in that school, and then even when it comes to here, you can only renovate so much. And as I said last week, you know, that school is nearing 100 years old, this school is nearing 70 years old, and the town really has to think about it. Now, they may not care, because they don't have any kids in the school system, they'll never have kids in the school system. And, but it has to be important for the town. And this new school has to be built for the high school, for what you had talked about, robotics, all that stuff. That's the way of the future, and, you know, we don't probably have much of that here. So that's what I believe. We have to build a new middle school, high school, to get those kids out of there, then that's what this town has to do. That, to me, is their choice. And the only other thing, and I don't know if I should be comparing this, but I did look up the Boylston system. Now, we've been in sports with them for 30 years or more. My daughters played in high school. They're in their 40s now. We still go back and forth with sports. So a town that's smaller than us, and now they've merged with Berlin, and I think they're equal. In 2020, they were about the same size of us. But Boylston, with the same number of kids as us, had their school built in 1967. So in 2007, that was 40 years later, they went for a feasibility study for a new high school. Now, our school is almost 70 years old, and outside of the last 4 years, or 10, I don't know, have we ever gone for a feasibility study? And in 2007, they were accepted, and in 2013, they had a brand-new high school. So after 40 years of their high school, they went for a new high school, and here we are, almost 70 years, going for a new high school, and not even going for a new elementary school. So that's all I have to say. And we still merge sports with them, and maybe they're different how they operate, but I guess I just look at it that their town voted for a new school after 40 years of a school. Maybe it was higher enrollment with Berlin, I don't know, whatever it was, but they've always been equivalent to us in sports, because we have played them sports for 30 years, or more maybe. I only know 30. That's all.
Thank you.
Capital improvement plan, and I know one of your slides, I think it was slide number 7, talked about identifying, scheduling, and financing major infrastructure. So I know the school sometimes, you know, I sit on the finance committee, we do a lot of stuff with the town as far as grants, we see stuff that comes through for the town grants, different DPW, seniors, whatever it might be. We don't see everything, all the sources that are available to the schools, because you guys do that on your own. And I know Christy does a great job and everything, but all I'm saying is going forward, I think it's really important that that position really be elevated to identify everything that's out there, because as was previously mentioned, the townspeople are going to want to know that we've pushed every button to get every financing source, as well as the taxpayers. That's all I'm saying. So I just think that's a really important thing, and anything we can do to help is, you know, from the finance committee standpoint, we're welcome.
Nice. Thank you.
Or 5, whatever. Jim, I think your speech was perfect. I think that would go far. I mean, you should have had this meeting first. you know, and then done the other two. I think a lot of stuff came out. I mean, the excitement about whatever, seeing new stuff when you're a new kid. I mean, I'll pile on that one with, went to WPI, 20 years or 30 years later, my daughter goes to WPI and I say, what is all this new stuff here that they're doing? I mean, but as proud as a parent to see her come out. I mean, that was terrific. So I would pile onto that also to make, not only get unity, but get like a pride in the program. I mean, like make people like, yeah, this is a good idea and this is what we should be doing and this will make us great or whatever. You know, this will make the school back to whatever, what it was 20, 30, whatever years ago. I think that would be terrific. Is there like a before and after walkthrough of the Orange school project, which seemed to be about the most similar project? Like, so you could see what they started with and what they ended up with, and maybe people would appreciate it that way. Like say, oh my goodness, yes, well, this seems even like a dumb idea not to do or something like that. I don't know if that exists, but that would be a valuable, I think, thing to put out there. And then you had mentioned, I think you said students, programming, and building. Is there talk about programming besides only the, I forget what you called it, the vocational or you had a programming idea that was
Career and college readiness is part of.
yeah, and I mean, is there going to be a discussion or something? Not a meeting like this, but like that's also part of the school, you know. Well, any of it. I mean, like just like yeah, we're going to have new equipment and new spaces and flexible areas and new teachers. But what are they going to be doing? We have this new whatever. We're working on curriculums. We're always on top of it. We're always on how they teach. We're always I don't know. But some of that is also part of the pride, interest, unity, all that kind of stuff too.
Well, as I've been collecting data from the town and as part of my entry planning process, a reoccurring theme that I've heard from parents, students, teachers, and community members in general is just the more of the career-based and even college-based, advanced coursework-based opportunities being available to the students as they go through in their trajectory. And the way we look at it is with the college and career opportunities, whether that's like a larger scale internship program that's rooted in growing industry sectors like healthcare or information technology or advanced manufacturing, or you're looking at college course opportunities that maybe exist here, maybe exist more on a campus for a college experience for students, which some school districts have explored. We had that in my previous school district as well, but you're essentially building it backwards. So you're looking at those opportunities as more a part of that culminating experience, but everything you do leading up to that matters. So the expectations are high right out of the gate, and they continue to be high, and you feed students into that system. And personally, I've seen it work, being responsible for an urban high school and having 70%, over 70% of my students were eligible for advanced courses by the time they were juniors and seniors. So it's a pipeline that starts in the earlier grades.
Oh, absolutely.
With high expectations. And as Jim said too, there's a lot of opportunities across the state for innovative school projects. And it doesn't necessarily have to change the physical structure of the school. And it might not be like an auto mechanic experience, for example, which would be more career and technical education based. But with the innovation school models, you can introduce things like STEM. And
Robotics.
Emily talked about robotics and how you can have a robotics feeder system. You could create a partnership with WPI and help get students preferential acceptance into WPI if you build the right kind of prerequisite program. So a lot of those ideas are absolutely being spoken about, and I'm gathering a lot of great feedback from the community on what sort of modernized schooling model they want us to continue to push towards.
Excellent. No, I'm glad to hear it. I'll keep my bar high, I guess, and run for it.
Yeah, we would struggle with the expectations on kids nowadays. I know I would certainly be after school for extra help on a regular basis.
I just want to add to that real quick also. I do appreciate all of you coming out here and everyone watching this. I think we can all agree, I think it's safe to say that everyone in this room and everybody who's been watching this feels that we need to absolutely do something. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that we're in a weird situation and we need to fix it. I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I see a lot of you that have been to all of the sessions or multiple or even just this one or whatever. And I just want to say that we do really appreciate you coming out and asking these questions.
I wanted to make a quick point. Regards, one of the exciting things is that Dr. Riley talked about is the 50-year study and the comparison. And I think that's going to really open up a lot of eyes, because as we learned at the tour of Major Edwards, and Ken did a great job explaining, it's not necessarily what you can see, it's a lot of what you can't see. And the old systems, the rust and the sprinkler heads indicate, you know, bigger problems, the tunnels that you need a two-man tandem team to go down, like that's not okay, and that's not safe, and it's not accessible, and it's not, our kids deserve better. And Dr. Riley made a great point at the last info session that as a community, it's our responsibility to educate the kids and give them a safe and accessible and productive environment to learn in. And I think that's what the overall mission is here. And regardless of whether we all agree specifically on what the plan is, I think everybody agrees that is what we need to do, and that's what we're aiming for. And I just also wanted to take the opportunity, because Dr. Riley's very humble, but he thanked all of us, but I thank him because he spearheaded all of this and all the info, all the data. He's done a lion's share of the work gathering it and presenting this all to all of us. So.
So, Christina Fedoni, I figured since Ray did a plug that he has a meeting tomorrow at 6:30, I would say the Select Board also has a meeting tomorrow where we're going through warrant articles. I'm not a townie, I've only lived here 20 years, and apparently you have to like be born and raised here and never have moved to be considered a townie. But in 20 years of being here, what I have consistently seen is we are great at starting projects, and then a turnover will happen and projects don't get finished. And I think what I hear from a lot of people, I'll use the senior center as a great item. We were all told that the field would be restored. The senior center completed 5 years later, guess what didn't happen? And then there was funding. I think a lot of us are used to fighting for a lot of things, and I think when we think of capital funding, our CIB board is not looking at $1 million of funding. They're looking at $300,000. This year it'll be $305,000 that will be transferred, and they're spreading that across the entire town. So when we make decisions, it's not, yes, the school might put forward items, but you're putting forward a boiler at Major Edwards. I think it took a decade to actually get the second one. I don't even know if it's still replaced 20 years later, but it stopped working when my son, who's now 23, was at Major Edwards in kindergarten. And that was a fight. I don't think the town, when we think of capital funding and they say, well, why didn't you fix it? Why didn't you keep up on it? You're looking at $300,000. I can't even make the ADA improvements we need across the town with $300,000. I can't do that with 3 times that, let alone fix these buildings. So for the first time in 20 years, this has come up. And other towns have built brand new schools, brand new additions. And we always see the price tag and say, wait a minute, we could do this differently because someone else has a better plan. And guess what happens? 50 years goes by and these buildings sit there until new parents go, why didn't we ever fix this? Well, this is why. This is your chance to fix it. But you're not going to do it with capital money. There's $300,005, I think, in a pamphlet that I'm going to look at tomorrow. I don't know what that would do for the school, but it's not going to answer all the problems. So I would just say that. So we do have a meeting tomorrow for the Select Board if anyone would like to listen in.
Thank you.
Hi, Christine Biscotti, Chino Ave. I just did the walkthrough with you of the elementary school. and it was my first time going in the building. And the first thought that's going through my mind is that's the building that needs to be fixed. The air doesn't feel safe, the building isn't safe, like you just said. And so I'm just wondering, knowing that you have limited funds, why would you build a new high school first instead of building an elementary school and addressing the most urgent need? And if you do go forward with the high school first, how much longer are you going to be operating the elementary school in its current state? Because obviously none of this happens overnight. So I'm imagining the kids are still going to be in that really bad air quality, overcrowded classrooms, unsafe building for another 5 to 8 years.
So as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's the way the process works. We found a need, in a way to look at the whole district collectively. If we were to deviate at any point, then let me just back, the 5 to 7 is a standard for an MSBA project. So to address the needs of the elementary school, if we were to stop everything we're doing, is 5 to 7 years from the time that the MSBA then decides to accept our new plan. So I think collectively, there's been a lot of thought that's gone into this entire plan for many, many years. It is the way that we can receive the most reimbursement amount, because we're getting reimbursed at a 57% on a larger building project. So it's more money that's actually going to be coming into the town from that perspective, and it solves all of the needs. Well, let me back. It doesn't solve all of the needs, but building the new school lays the path to then renovating this school to then solve all of the needs. So it would be a collective 5 to 7, most likely 8 years, to solve all the needs doing it this way. We don't really have another option that I can think of to fix the elementary school any quicker without continuing down this plan. I don't know if anybody else has anything they would add to that, but.
David Gustafson. Vanessa, could I ask a follow-up question? Could I ask you to respond to what Jim just said in light of your post on West Boylston Neighbors Connect? Thank you.
So in my opinion, and my opinion is my own, I'm not talking for any of the boards that I'm on. I just feel like I wouldn't want to put the current elementary kids into another 70-year-old building. I feel like that's a Band-Aid, and I think we need to address another avenue. I don't know what that avenue is, but I do think as a school building committee, we can reconvene and come up with a plan that will be more immediate and also more cost-friendly towards the school. Because I've seen the estimates for what this project might entail, which includes upgrades, and I just don't know if we are at the point where we're ready to foot that type of bill.
I used to do this in my classroom. So, Jim, could I ask you to respond to what Vanessa just said?
Sure. Oh. That's fine. I think I kind of answered it already, where essentially this gets us the most reimbursement dollar-wise. It does collectively address all of the needs of the district, and it does it in the quickest amount of time. We've talked to MSBA. Any going back to the drawing board is going to add time, and with time becomes money. And like other comments have been made, it's just kicking the can down the road. I think the longer we take to look at this, the more costly it's going to be, even if maybe an elementary school might be less expensive than a high school, then we're neglecting the needs of the middle high school. So we're going to neglect something unless we do it as a collective project. And I think this is going to be the most cost-effective way, because everything goes up. So the longer we kick this can, the more expensive it's going to get, and we don't know what the future reimbursement rates are going to be.
All right. I think you've hit the point of my question about the study. Like, can you still spend all of the 2 million, could you, if all of a sudden the study comes back and you say something like, hey, this leaves whatever out of this study, like now we don't know what to do with something, or we don't, but we're willing to pay the full rate because it wouldn't be reimbursed because it's for whatever, the repair or something like that. That's why I asked the question, so that you don't get to the end of that feasibility study, get to the end of getting whatever, the project done, and end up incomplete. Like whatever, you know, I agree, this building probably could be made into a nice elementary school, but you gotta do the work that plans that out. You know, I mean, and to come back and ask for that plan again later, to your point, is later and more expensive. It would be nice if you could somehow get it in that initial study, even if it's, you have to come back and say that you're gonna do that, and it's not gonna be reimbursed at the 57%, it's gonna be on us. But people might vote on it and say no, or may say yes, I don't know how you get the consensus. But what else are you gonna do? You're gonna finish this whole project 5 to 7 years down the road and then say, oh, yeah, we gotta figure out how to get the little toilets and the big bathrooms, you know? I mean,
Well, it would have to be done in tandem, and so I'll go back and say what I said earlier. Like, if we spell out what we're gonna spend the $2 million on, I'm not comfortable spending on anything other than what that is. However, if we then come back to town meeting later and say, hey, we get half of that money back, we would like you to give us permission to use that half that we got back to do this future work, then yes, that's fine. But I wouldn't feel comfortable spending money on something that we didn't tell them we were spending it on. That's all. So the point is, and we do have to do it kind of together, because the renovation is gonna have to happen as soon as that building is ready, because we have a 6th grade class that's staying here. So it does have to happen together, but, so I think that's a good point, and I think Maura asked earlier, this is not the only ask over the next 5 to 7 years to 8 years. There is gonna be more. I think we hit a few of those items today. We don't have any real details to talk about them further, but it is stuff that does need to be addressed and need to be discussed.
I agree. I think we're on the same page. We're saying the same things. However, I don't, yeah, come back and say we saved this much money, let's spend it on something else is fine with me. I don't care. But I think that Tuesday, Monday, whatever, the 20th, people have to feel like the project solves all the problems. Not gets most of the way there, and you can promise we're going to get most of the way there and come back for more money, and this is our strategy. But you just got to let people to feel like there's hope and pride and unity on the schools are going to happen or not. Not halfway, not 3/4, not going to put the field in, not going to, whatever it is. We're going to get all the way there. I mean, I think that has to be somewhere in the message or something like that.
Thanks, Mark.
So the reality is that this town needs 2 brand-new schools. And that's the reality. Cost-wise, we probably can't do it, but that's the reality, because this town let these schools get this far without trying to do something. Little renovation here, little renovation there. Okay, so we can't go backwards with what we've gotten so far, that we've been accepted into this feasibility study, because it took us a while to get here. And if we have to get into building a school here, to get those kids out of that school, and I'll say it again, that's what we have to do. Because if you go back and then try to go to just get a new school for down there, then this just goes on and gets older and older. And then it takes you 6 or 7 years, and the kids are still in the school over there anyways. So, and you can, all right, I'll renovate that wall that's coming off right now, and then we'll renovate that floor that's coming up right now. But we've gotten to this point, and it's the farthest we've probably ever come in a long, 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 long time. So why are we going back, as far as I'm concerned? We move here. I mean, other towns, and I can't think of any here, but other towns have put kids in another building, because it's gotten so bad, until they can get another school to even renovate it a little bit. I don't think we have anything in West Boylston that we could probably do with that anyways. So, but then to keep the kids in there for another 5 or 6 or 7 years, you know, is just not right either. But we've come the farthest we've come in a long, long time. You can't go back, because we have to move ahead for one school or another now as a town. And you guys have to convince the town that we need something here. You guys have to convince the town that the education of these kids is going to be up to the 21st century, as the MSBA says, and is going to be safe and healthy to be in too. So if you guys can't convince the town, forget it. The kids, I don't know, I just feel like, how can you can't keep educating them like this. You got, everybody else is moving forward, but we're not gonna? Is it the people who run this town? I don't know what it is. I don't know anything about government. I don't know anything about, you know, school politics. I don't know anything about how you run it, but I feel very strongly, I've been here for 47 years, that we need something new in this town. Both schools, but how we go about it, maybe it'll take us 15 years to get both schools built, but we have to have something, and don't go back, that's all.
I have two questions. One, what is, so we're talking about retrofitting this school for an elementary school. What is the estimated life that those retrofits, like doing that, like what's the estimated life of all that? Like how long do we think that school's gonna last? Because this is a 7-year-old school, right? They said, so if we put a bunch of money into it, will it last another 50 years? Like, do we have those numbers?
Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that right now.
Because that might give a lot of people some comfort that like you're not gonna come back and ask for a ton of money in like 10 years. And then if the, I guess like, since some people are voting no, what are the proposed alternatives? If you're not voting yes for the high school, what are the proposed alternatives like for the elementary school?
I think that's directed at me.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I believe an elementary school costs at least half of what a high school would cost. And I think that in a town this small, the burden over 2,200 households can sustain a, let's just say, $100 million elementary school versus a $200 million high school additional tax. And on top of that, you would have to also add in, you know, whatever it costs to renovate this. So if you're looking at the overall cost of it, I just don't think that our town is ready to put up those funds. And I do believe that we can come up with some better alternatives for a newer, or maybe not, well, go in and try to build an elementary school, but also try to update it so that the kids that are in there now have some immediate impact. I mean, my kids are in there right now. They're in 1st and 3rd grade. I want what's best for them.
Any other questions? If not, I think we will adjourn, and I will thank everybody for coming out and spending the last couple hours with us, and hopefully it was very informative, and
Thank you all.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.